G'day, it's Pete the Polymath here. Again here to give you some advice, perhaps, to tell you about my experience with being naked. And at the end of this video, you'll see Mud Tribe. Now, Mud Tribe is a performance that I developed back in the mid to late 90s, and it became incredibly successful because people were allowed to be authentic to themselves. Now, there is no nudity in this no nudity in this video, but there are people who are not wearing clothes, no clothes at all. What they're wearing is mud, sticks, leaves, bark, and paint. So you will see no nipples, no penises, no labia, and you'll see butt crack. But that's not really offensive, is it? So I want you to see what happens when a group of people can be naked in public, having fun, and living a life for just a while that has some kind of extreme resemblance to what it is that we are, what it is we've always been, and what perhaps it is what we should become. We shouldn't be ashamed of our nakedness. We should have the opportunity to express ourselves visually, not just with the face without any makeup, but with the body without any covering. So there's a truth in that. This is what I truly are. You can see me as my truth. And I've lived in naked societies, you see, and I can see them in their naked truth. And people get so worried if they haven't been naked in public, or if they have difficulties with coming to terms with what they are as a naked person. My mother used to say, we're all naked underneath our clothes. And that's fine, but it just fired up my imagination. And she also gave me instructions on what women look like underneath their pants, underneath their panties. And she said that the front of a woman's body is not like a man's body, but it looks more like a bottom at the front as well as at the back. Isn't that such an amazing description? So I never saw my mother naked. I never saw my father naked. I didn't find out whether my father was circumcised until several years ago when I had to ask my sister, and she only knew because she was a geriatric nurse and looked after my father a fair bit in his latter years. So I'll briefly go through my encounter with nudity. It was an incredible shameful thing in our society, in our family, and then in society for you to ever be naked. Even when you're a baby, don't look on a naked person, a naked baby, a naked anything. I remember driving in a car and we drove past a 2-year-old sitting in a gutter, naked, and we were sort of shocked. And then I remember in the 60s, probably late 60s, driving through the countryside, and we look out and there's some naked hippies working in their garden, and we're just like utterly shocked. And then in 1974, 75, around that time, there was the Sunbury Rock Festival. And they had the big names from all Australia, and sometimes they brought in big names from overseas, and even Queen performed there and were booed off the stage. But we were fascinated as teenagers because we were seeing naked people on TV, not up close, not erotic. These weren't sort of pornography. There was sort of people laughing and playing in the mud and the dust and just having a good time on alcohol and party drugs, on dope perhaps, and LSD, and maybe even mushies. That they looked like happy people and they were naked. But that era was just a bit too young for me. I couldn't go to Sunbury because I couldn't have a licence, and I didn't really know anyone how it was going, and so we just had to sort of say, well, that's not going to happen. And nudity hadn't turned up on TV until it started to appear very briefly in number 96 in 1975. First full frontal nudity of a woman. But I remember when I was perhaps 12, going to the bush behind our place and finding a dirty magazine, a porn magazine. And these were, well, you could find them every now and then, but to find them in good condition, that meant that the pages hadn't been stuck together by the rain, not by the by the coming and going. But if you found one of those, if I found one of those, I would take it to my secret hiding place and protect it from the weather with putting tin over it. And but there was one I found that shocked me. Like I must have been about 14 or so, and it utterly shocked me because this woman, she was just standing there, this image of this beauty, and she had pubic hair. Now, I didn't know that women had pubic hair because how could I possibly know such a thing? I'd never seen a naked woman. It did not happen. Because it was all left to the imagination. And I didn't even know what boobs felt like. Were they pointy and hard, like were they soft and jelly? Like, I had no idea what they were because I'd never seen them so freed and swaying in the breeze and taking gravity as as they will, and projecting the perky, voluptuous youth, and the sag and the stretch of the wise and matured. We never saw that. It was all hidden, and so I think that we've ended up having lots of, like, the whole Epstein pedophile island kind of thing, and all this corruption and stuff, and our children aren't safe because we can't trust anyone anymore. And so we have to drive them to school and back in a car just because they're just so vulnerable, and the world is filled with such danger. Well, how could we possibly have gotten ourselves in this situation? How could we possibly get ourselves out of it? Well, I think I know, and it does mean that we do have to actually learn to be naked. And so, if you're a parent, your children have to see you naked, and if you're a child, you have to see your parents naked, and you have to see your aunts and uncles naked, and your work colleagues naked, and general population naked, and I've taken my nudity for a long, long way since I first started experimenting when I was probably 16, just nude sunbaking. And then going to Point Addis, like a beach. I'm probably doing that probably found out about that in 83, probably. And that became a regular place I would go, because it was like 2 kilometres of pristine beach with amazing dramatic cliffs and tea tree scrub and other naked people, but there was no communication. It was just like, you're off there on the beach and you've got your little group of people around you, and I'm not going to go over there and present myself to you because I don't know. I don't want to intrude. I don't know how social naked beaches are, at least back in those days. And I got caught nude sunbaking at Sunnyside Beach back in '84, and I got there and there were naked people playing volleyball on the beach, and I found a place that was totally secluded and isolated. No one could see me from anywhere, not even people walking on the beach. The only people that saw me were the police. They gave me a fine. I was supposed to turn up in court, but I didn't realise it was going to take me an hour and a half to drive to the court to defend myself, and so I got there late, and And my case was first up rather than last up, and so I just had to grin and bear it, literally. Okay, so move on to like 85 when I was travelling around Australia for the first time. This is when I was in my tiny car, living in my tiny car, sort of asking the big questions and having the great adventures and experimenting with what it was like to be naked and barefoot in the dunes and the mountains and the forests, living for several hours at a time like humans had always lived, and becoming confident and comfortable with being like that. And then arriving at Broome and Cable Beach, and there the beach was a very it was a popular place, and it was also very social. You could actually have conversations with total strangers who were naked. And one of the reasons why that could occur was because the high tide would come in, and everyone would be forced into the very, very tops of slither of the beach. And so you really had to get to know people. But I remember the first time I got there, I was unsure of how I would be, like naked amongst naked people, and in particular, naked women. Would I have an embarrassing erection? I didn't know what would happen. And so as soon as I got down there, I left my things on the beach, at the top of the beach, and I did my enormous walk. I would walk 2 kilometres down the beach and then walk 2 kilometres back. And by the time I got back, the tide had come in, and I literally had to step over a naked woman to get to where I left my clothes. And although I was under an enormous amount of stress, I didn't have an embarrassing encounter. I didn't show my naivety, my lack of self-control, even though every man knows just how difficult it is to have that kind of self-control. But I realised that there was a time for erections and a time for just being a male, and that was great. That was a great experience. And I ended up hanging out at Broome for 6 weeks, and that was with a group of 6 men who also came from my hometown, Bendigo, and we're all naked together, so smoking dope down there and getting drunk together, and just having a great time as naked friends should do, that no one else does. It's such a rare thing. You might say it's an impossible thing for most people. So by the time 88 came around and I went to Australia again, I'd sort of really refined my long distance naked barefoot walking, and I even attended when I was over in Perth. I went down the beach. The Cottesloe, no, the Scarborough Naked Olympics. When you're on a beach with 2,000 naked people, and there's tug of war, and there's volleyball, and there's sprinting, and there's swimming out and going around markers and coming back. And it was just absolutely extraordinary. And I suffered just a bit because my tan wasn't good enough for that, and I refused to wear any suntan lotion or blocking agents and stuff, and that's the reason why I've had like 29 basal cell carcinoma squamous cells, and one really bad one that was supposed to well, it had a 50% chance of killing me. So that was found in 2012, and there was a 50% chance that I wouldn't make it to 2017. So I'm still paying that enormous price, and I've got 7 more surgeries have lined up over the next few months. But back in those days, like, I lived like a human. That was the important thing. I lived like a human. And then I invented the selfie stick. I was running Yeah, I started running Mud Tribe. You'll see Mud Tribe later on, because I wanted to be naked in public and have the experience of being the leader of a tribe, just like leaders of tribes had always been, where it's naked. But again, this is not a naked tribe. These people, like, they begin naked, and I see them naked quite often, but that's just a transition before they become the Mud Tribe. And one of the important things about Mud Tribe is once you leave the preparation area, you can only speak in gibberish. And so you're forced to communicate with each other and with the rest of the people attending the festival, using pretend language, which ends up being mime. And so it's pure, utter comedy. It's extraordinary. Anyway, so I attended World Naked Bike Rides, and I think I did about 7 of those. And you can find me on Vimeo. You can find me there. I only uploaded one because I tried uploading it on YouTube and they banned it, and so I expected that. And so Vimeo. Anyway, look up World Naked Bike Ride, Peter Gleason, and I think it's 2012, and that was an extraordinary experience with maybe 70 people. Or something like that. It's an incredible number of people, and I was the only one. I was one of the few people who was truly naked, because most other people had covered themselves with slogans of various kinds. Anyway, so I remember one time coming back from Confest, I'd been given photos. It was after Confest. I'd been given this enormous set of photographs that a really great photographer had done of me and Mud Tribe and Mud Tribe people definitely posing and stuff. Like, it was great photography, and they were on my computer, and I was at my parents' place, and so it was in 91 or 92, and I said to my parents, like, I was there, and I was living on the farm, and I wanted to just access some photos and do some stuff on the computer when I was there, and Mum's sister and her husband were there, so aunt and uncle, closest in the whole family sort of group and sort of stuff, and there I was there, and I was just looking at the photographs of Mud Tribe, and I said to my aunt and uncle that I'm looking at pictures of myself, so I'm running a performance here, and there's actually naked people. They're covered in mud, sort of thing. But do you want to have a look at them? And they said yes, and so I showed them these images and stuff, and they weren't shocked. They were just bemused, you could say. But I wanted to do it because I sort of grew up with these people, and there's lots of aunts and uncles and that sort of the family, and lots of cousins, and I wanted the word to get out about what this cousin was doing, this nephew was doing, and we saw them off, and my father, as he's walking back from their car, and he sort of shook his head and said, "It's not just that you do these things; it's that you show people what you've done." Like, it was such a tragedy for him to have a son who was so unconventional. And the other grand conspiracy that occurred there was one of those World Naked Bike Rides where I cycled down Swanson Street with my monopod at maximum height, and then I was on the electric bike then, and so when the whole crowd left the junction of Collins Street and Swanson Street to storm the Citadel, Collins Street to the Treasury buildings, I was able to keep up with the leaders of the pack, the strongest ones, and because I had electric and I was still recording and sort of stuff, and so I just powered along with them doing the recording, and got to outside Pellegrini's, this very famous coffee shop, and we just happened to get there, and there's a Greek wedding happening, and so they're in their full regalia with their little bridesmaids and best men and sort of stuff, and they're having their photograph taken on the tram tracks, looking down the hill. And they just picked this time. The cars can't drive over you there because because it's tram tracks. And so the photographer's got himself set up there, and we arrive as these naked people on push bikes, and so we asked the bride and groom if if we could be in their photographs, and they said yes. And just at that time, there it wasn't just that. It was there was a photographer from The Age who was there. Anyway, so we did this thing, and then on Monday, like we did it very tastefully. We actually positioned ourselves very carefully, so that most of us were men, and most of us we could position ourselves so that we're standing behind our bikes, so the bike seats meant that there was no one going to be offended by the photograph that passed all the censors, and so it was front page of The Age newspaper. On the Monday, and all of these aunts and uncles are ringing up mum and dad and they're saying, I think that's Peter naked on the front page of The Age. So such funny times, so hilarious. These prudes, these people have got no idea how to live a full life, you know. Anyway, so I hope that there's an opportunity for you to find a way of being naked. Like I go to Confest, and my children have gone to Confest all their lives, and so they know what naked people look like. It's not just that they've seen their mum and their dad naked; they've seen total strangers naked. They've seen children their age naked. They've seen elderly people naked. They've done naked things. They've painted their naked bodies. They've covered their naked bodies with mud and stuff. Like, they've done all of that because that's all part of what it is to be human. What it is not human is to forever be hidden behind clothing. Yeah, it's one of those things, you know. We get caught up in this. Like the earliest clothing was just a little lap, just to hide the genitalia, you know, stuff, just so we weren't too much like the bonobos and getting aroused all the time. But also it was very important for us to not alter our selection according to our likes and dislikes of our genitalia. And that's why our genitalia is so different. I don't know how much you know about women's genitalia, but I've taken it upon myself to look at photographs, unshaved, pure images of thousands of women's genitalia, and they're all amazingly different, and they're all equally, incredibly erotic. The male hetero brain has an image of beauty that relates to face, it relates to body, it relates to genitalia. It's just part of what we are, you know. And so it's been one of those things that I've needed to satisfy. I couldn't go through life without knowing completely what it was that we were before we became this domesticated, altered creature capable of committing atrocities on our fellow humans, whether it be on the children, or whether it be on war, or whether it be on using, like, we're rich and you're poor and we don't care, or whether it's climate change is going to happen and it's going to be something that the future people have to deal with, but I don't give a stuff. So I think it's something we should do. And even like I've got calluses on my feet because it's in the summer here in Australia, and I feel the ground the way my ancestors have felt the ground. All of my reflexes and coordination they're all pure human. Whereas how many of you have ever had calluses on your feet? Like, is it none? It must be close to that. And even the indigenous people of Australia, the Aboriginal people of Australia, like, they no longer walk this land barefoot. Very, very rarely. They wear the shoes and they wear the boots and they wear the thongs and like, there's an advantage to wearing foot coverings, like definitely advantages to that, but it means that there's just that part of our humanity that's missing, that there's an aspect of our brain that's expecting us to live like a human, and it's continually reminded that we're abnormal, that this is not the way it's always been. And sure, we can adapt. That's what we do. We can adapt to anything, any situation. That's the reason why we can spread across the entire planet, devouring the ecologies. and you notice that every animal is frightened of us. They all just recognise us instantly as being dangerous, and they just put out their warning screech and squawk, and they run as fast as they can. They swim away as fast as they can. They fly away as fast as they can, because they know that we can't be trusted. That we'll eat anything. We'll just do that, and we'll kill anything, even each other. And so we had to make up laws so we could live together as communities. Thou shalt not kill. Just because we'd end up killing each other and not progressing. We just have these petty grudges just taking out the best of us. And each person who dies, that's an investment in the knowledge of the community. And them gone means that they're unable to contribute for the rest of what would have been their life. And now we're dealing with these endless wars, these utterly stupid wars that are caused by grievances that are centuries old, that are millennia old, that come from some prejudiced fool with a pen, a script, a sharp quill, dipping into the poison ink and writing it over and over again, the text that came into the minds of the delusional people who thought it was God that was talking to them, the ones that ended up possessing their land for long periods of time because their God told them to exterminate, to commit utter genocide on all of those who lived there. Well, their God was the one true God, and well, if God says that's what you do, well, that's what you do, isn't it? And if that's what your ancestors have done for the last, 80 generations, like 120 generations, who are we to say they've all made a serious mistake and they really should take a good look at themselves and wonder whether they are committing their own descendants to hell on earth forever? When the alternative, as the atheist messiah that I am, and I explain very clearly, is that if you get yourself out of that particular hole, then you can usher in an age that will be an eternity of paradise, heaven on earth, peace and goodwill amongst all humans and amongst all creatures that in the past we just hunted down, killed and ate. Anyway, that's all I want to say at this stage. I'm really having a good time sort of telling all this sort of stuff and being sort of flowery with my language. So now I introduce Mud Tribe, and I'm not visible in Mud Tribe on this. There's other Mud Tribes you'll see in future videos where I am visible, but this one, I've got to hold the camera on a stick, and this one I think is New Year 2011, and so all those people, they didn't give me permission to post this on a public forum, and then some of them were worried, as they would be, because like anything could happen with any photograph, any video that's ever taken of anyone. And so I said, look, I'm not going to do anything for a long, long time. Probably by the time that I do anything with it, if I ever do, you'll be able to, you'll have changed your appearance so much through aging that you'll be able to either deny that it was you or brag about how it was you and present it as evidence for the absolutely incredible story that you've been telling people for your whole life. Well, for the last 15 years, you know. So yes, and just remember that these people are not. They've not been given any real instructions on what to do. I've just set them up in formations, like the hand-holding never-ending spiral is the one you're looking at mainly, and I start that just a reference. I start that as just a circle, so I do mixing waves of the circle, so everyone gets to look at every person, and then for that 2 seconds, every person is looking at them. It's a very, very powerful system of introduction. And the sound comes out as well when the mixing wave goes around, and they have to learn their gibberish as well. They may adopt a gibberish name, and there are certain kinds of gibberish gestures that I'll teach them, and gibberish, and there will be signals that I have to generate that they know how to react, so that I can have some control of them as the performance progresses. I don't do mud tribe anymore because my skin won't let me do it. There are wounds that don't heal, and I'm too skinny now, and washing off all that mud in the river, standing in that cold water for so long, I just can't do it anymore. I shiver too much. So I've passed it on to other people who then take it where they want to go with their expression of their leadership in mud tribe. But I've given you these just few minutes at the end, and it's done in silence. I don't know why that happened, because it seemed to have just been lost. I'll go back through it and try and work out how the sound disappeared for this particular one, these particular images. So anyway, and so daydream and night dream, and talk about the things that I bring up in this. Like, I've known people who've had dinner parties with friends and given friends instructions saying that this is a naked dinner party, so you arrive in clothes and you take them off, and for the evening we'll be interacting as naked people. Well, actually, that was Bev, the comedian who used to do that. so she had a bit more sort of leeway and a bit more sort of credibility, and she could make any situation funny. But there is Confest, and that still goes on, and but Confest has always not promoted itself. It didn't want to draw in undesirable people, the perverts, and sexual deviants. It didn't want those people. It wanted to draw in people who just wanted to live like people and share their humanity, and that's what's continued for a long time. And the only reason I'm mentioning Confest now really is because the only way you can get into Confest is to pay by credit card. So therefore there's a whole system of verification for who you are, and if you're on some register somewhere as a criminal or as a sex predator sort of thing, like you're on that, like that's going to be a bit of a deterrent if you're going to go there and commit crimes. And when you get into the place, well, you've got to stop at the gate, and you have to produce photo ID. Well, we've got you. Like, don't come into our festival and commit any crimes at all, because it used to be theft and things like that would go on, but we know who you are. It's not like the old days of where you just rocked up and did your thing and had a good time and disappeared, and no one even knew you'd been there. No, the way to get a permit now and to make it work with the police and the ambulance and the fire brigade and all the emergency services, like we have to deal with the regulations of this time. So we've taken away the risk, but then again we've added all this bureaucracy. But in the long run, it's better. But that it is nudity, and one of my daughters took her English boyfriend to Confest about 5 years ago with a group of her friends, and he lasted 1 day or 2 days before he had to hitchhike out of the place and catch a train back to civilization because he just couldn't take it anymore. It was just overwhelmed him. So, and also, like, none of my friends, none of my family have ever been to Confest, even though this one coming up will be my 60th. Anyway, I've been ranting and raving long enough, and I've got to go and do some stuff today. And so thanks for being here for me and listening to my stories and wondering just what it's all going to mean when you see these bizarre images. And write in the comments if you like. Write there was no nudity in this video. Just to reassure the algorithm that there definitely was no nudity. There was no skin over any genitalia or any erogenous zones in this video. Thanks very much, Pete the Polymath, and I hope you come back again and bring your friends because I'm having fun, and I hope you're having fun as well. Goodbye.